We're always told to fear economic chaos. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if all that instability was actually an opportunity? Today, we're going to dig into a strategy for not just surviving the next crisis, but actually using it to come out ahead. It sounds a little crazy, right? But the whole idea we're exploring here is that with the right game plan, the instability we all dread can literally become a catalyst for financial growth. To get how that's even possible, we first have to accept one simple, kind of hard truth. I mean, this is just the world we live in now. Recessions, inflation, pandemics, these aren't some rare black swan events anymore. They're just features of the modern economy. And here's the kicker. While those shocks are pretty much guaranteed to happen, our financial security, well, that's not. So how in the world do we bridge that gap? Okay, so our first step is to just get our bearings. We're kicking things off with Section 1, Surviving Economic Storms. And we're going to really unpack why it feels like we're constantly navigating in the dark. So if we know the storm's coming, how do we build a better boat? Well, the answer lies in Section 2, The Art of Bouncing Back. And this is where we get into what resilience really means, and believe me, it's about way more than just being tough. It's about being smart. What's so cool is where the word even comes from. It's from the Latin for to jump back. I mean, think about that for a second. It's an action. It's dynamic. This isn't about just sitting there and taking a hit. It's about actively recoiling and then springing back, maybe even with more force than before. To really build resilience, we've got to speak the language. A hazard, that's the potential threat, right? Like a recession on the horizon. Your vulnerability is what makes you susceptible, like maybe having all your eggs in one basket with a single income source. A disaster, that's when the hazard hits your vulnerability and it just completely overwhelms you. Knowing the difference here is absolutely crucial. And this right here, this is a key distinction. Real resilience has two sides. First, there's what we usually think of, absorptive capacity. That's pure survival mode, just keeping the lights on. But the second part, adaptive capacity, now that's the game changer. This is about actually learning from the crisis so you're stronger for the next one. It's a difference between just bouncing back to where you were and bouncing forward. So how do you actually build that adaptive capacity? That brings us right to the heart of this whole thing in Section 3, Your Resilience Algorithm. We're going to stop thinking about resilience as just some vague feeling and start treating it like a system, a repeatable process for turning all that chaos into pure clarity. And let's be super clear about this. This is not some personality trait you're either born with or you're not. Resilience is a system. It's an active capability that you can literally design for yourself from the ground up using a really clear logical framework. So here it is, the algorithm itself. It's a simple 4-step model where each step builds on the last. You start with raw data, just the facts, the numbers, then you organize that data into information by giving it context, the what, where, and when. That information becomes knowledge once you figure out how to actually act on it. And then finally, you get to wisdom, which is understanding why you're making a certain choice for the long haul. Okay, so that's the theory. It sounds good, right? But how does this actually work when things get messy? In Section 4, we're going to put the algorithm in action. We'll look at a couple of real-world examples to make this all feel a lot less abstract. All right, first up, let's take a look at a construction investor. We're talking about a high-risk, high-reward field that is super sensitive to every little economic shift. So how do they protect themselves from getting wiped out? Simple. They use the algorithm. For data, they're tracking everything: interest rates, housing demand, material prices. Then comes information. They use that data to map out what-if scenarios. This leads to knowledge, taking real action, like lining up multiple suppliers or locking in costs. And finally, wisdom, knowing when to hit the pause button on a new project. And more importantly, diversifying their entire portfolio so they're not just a construction person. See? It's a system, not just a guess. Okay, for our next example, let's look at a small business owner, someone who owns a restaurant. They're facing a completely different set of vulnerabilities, like supply chain nightmares or customers suddenly tightening their belts. And guess what? The exact same algorithm works here too. The data is their daily sales figures and what their suppliers are charging. The information is spotting the weak points, like realizing they rely on just one person for produce. The knowledge is the fix. Find backup suppliers and add online ordering to open up a new way to make money. And the wisdom? That's the long game. Always keep a cash reserve and be ready to pivot the menu if the economy takes a downturn. It's all about being proactive instead of just reactive. What these examples really show us is that the goal isn't just to scrape by. And that brings us to our final section here, moving from survival to wealth. This is where we put all the pieces together and learn how to truly bounce forward. So what does this mean for you? Well, think of this as your personal resilience toolkit. It's about diversifying your income. It's about beefing up your emergency savings. It's about having a plan B for your job or your business. And maybe the most important thing of all, it's about committing to learning and just mentally preparing yourself for the fact that things will be uncertain. Every single one of these is a piece of your personal algorithm. And really, this all comes back to a really powerful idea that just perfectly captures this whole mindset shift. Resilience is more than just bouncing back. It is about bouncing forward, using crises as catalysts for innovation, financial growth, and personal empowerment. In other words, it's not about getting back to normal. It's about using the disruption to create a better normal. So ultimately, it all boils down to this. We know for a fact that another crisis is coming. It's not an if, it's a when. The only real question left is, will you just be reacting to it when it happens, or will you have a plan ready to go? So I'll leave you with this. What's your algorithm?